So my name is Louise Crawford. I work in photography and installation, and
I'm Stéphan Guéneau. Well, the work grew out of a stay we stayed in Berlin for a few months, and we started to get interested in the idea of working around the city of Berlin. And as we were a regular visitor to the city for a few years, we started photographing a series of locations that we had previously filmed more than 10 years ago, and that was a kind of starting point for the work.
the film that we shot on 16mm in 1992 is called Festung Europa, and at that time it was talking about modes of transport and ways of moving around the city in Berlin, because for a modern city it basically been cut in half, and all those modes of kind of movement had also been cut in half as well. And so we were kind of just looking for kind of traces of where the wall had been, where you could walk, where you couldn't walk, where was east and west, where trains passed, where they passed with people, where they passed when they were empty, where also the airwaves were controlled above Berlin as well. We thought a good way back into the work, or a way of engaging with the place, would be to revisit, to go back to where we'd been before, because there was something about there's an element of time and change in the city that's very important, which is related to history, which is to do with the weight of history being very present in a collective memory, which isn't visible, and very present visually, but it's now something that is lifting, that weight is kind of lifting and changing, and has been for the past 20 years. Previous to that, in some form, in some other photographic work, there had already been this issue of, in the photograph and in the photographic frame, what you don't see in the image but it's there, for some reason that it's a detail, or it's in the foreground and you're looking straight into the background, or you're looking at something and you can only know so much about it. Photography can only tell you so much about a subject. So the issue of visibility and visibility and kind of knowledge kind of came out stronger in this work, or it kind of came out again in this work as it had been kind of surfacing in other works already.
So the exhibition comprised two series of photographs. The first series, which is these photos which were made after the film, or were kind of reshoot of location where the film has been done, and another series of 4 diptychs, which are dealing with this idea of visible and invisible, and the tunnels which were dug underneath the Berlin Wall in some cases, and in some other cases between the kind of different sectors when the wall wasn't already there. But this idea that was kind of, there was a underground activity in Berlin, and we photographed the location overground. So there's a kind of element of history quite being present within those photos, which is kind of there's two videos, which is the same work, which are showing kind of two different locations, again east and west, but without really kind of being clear about it. It's more everyday life, being back to normal in Berlin, with this kind of old symbol of the Cold War left behind, and with the young generation rather oblivious of that situation, using those kind of monument as a kind of great spot for skating in the case of one of the video. There's a reconstruction of a viewing platform which was an object, or is an object, was an object which used to be in the west side of the wall, and used to be for any tourists, any visitors to Berlin to have a peek over the wall, and it was almost like a negative desire, just a way of comforting yourself to be on the good side, because what it was showing was more or less not East Berlin or the other side as such, but it was just showing this kind of grim no man's land, those kind of soldier patrolling and those kind of abandoned building on the kind of next to the wall. So it was a very grim image, and of course it was a propaganda image as well.
Although it wasn't really I think when you went up those viewing platforms to have a look, you weren't aware, you weren't thinking, I'm on the way I'm looking is being ideologically constructed or anything like that. I think it's only afterwards when we thought about the platforms that used to be there, and actually think about making one and taking out of its context. Firstly, taking out of its context and putting it and drawing it on a white piece of paper, and then actually making it. Suddenly it became this object, and suddenly we started thinking about it differently.